Seagate Technology and Apple are just the latest victims of hackers gone wild. A phishing email tricked a Seagate employee into disclosing employee information, including social security numbers. And Apple Mac users have been targeted with ransomware for the first time. Hackers stealing data and charging owners a fee to get it back. Is anything safe anymore? Joining us, as you can see there, to answer that question is Zulfikar Ramzan, Chief Technology Officer at RSA, the cybersecurity firm. Good to have you with us, sir. And what do you make of the latest, especially this targeting of Apple Mac users?
You know, for the longest time, people have thought that somehow Apple computers were impervious to flaws or impervious to security issues. They treated Apple like it was hallowed ground. But the reality is that Apple is as vulnerable as anything else. And when something has high market share as Apple does, as its market share increases, we can expect to see a commensurate increase in the kinds of attacks that target Apple devices.
So you're saying this is kind of like Microsoft attacks or, excuse me, Windows attacks that used to be commonplace a decade ago? Maybe still
Absolutely.
are?
It makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's business sense for the attacker. And only in this case, the attacker happens to be part of a cyber criminal enterprise rather than a legitimate one. And so from my perspective, we can't take anything for granted. We've got to think about not only how we protect ourselves from these attacks, how do we detect them? How do we respond? How do we gain visibility to them? And that's really what we focus on at RSA in terms of telling our customers that's how they got to protect themselves.
Yeah, I have a question for Zulfikar. Is the nature of the threat changing? I mean, who are the perpetrators here? And are you seeing that shift as sort of the threat to our national security changes?
Absolutely. And we are seeing attackers get sophisticated across the board. 15 years ago, this was maybe a kid in their mother's basement. About 5 to 10 years ago, it began to become more cyber criminal enterprises, organized crime, and that sort of thing. Nowadays, we see a lot of nation-state level attacks with far more sophistication than we've ever seen in the past. And so we've got to realize this is not just about individuals. There is a true hacker industrial complex out there that we've got to be cognizant of.
But is this really sophisticated? I mean, think about Seagate, which unfortunately got the social security numbers of its employees into the wrong hands. They used an old, tried and true method of just tricking an employee into opening an email. That's nothing that sophisticated about that.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the reality is that just because an attack is sophisticated, we always sensationalize it, but the vast majority of attacks are very simple. Look, the barbarian's going to be able to get in the gate if somebody on the inside accidentally leaves it open, and I think we're seeing that here. Most attacks don't need to rely on any type of sophisticated measure. They can just simply work on the fact that somebody at the end user might actually make a mistake, and that's really what happened in this particular case.
Let me just ask you before we let you go. So as somebody who has a MacBook, you know, what do I need to do now being aware of this vulnerability? What should I personally do? And I don't make the answer buy an RSA product, by the way.
No, not at all. I mean, I think the reality is you have to exercise caution in everything you do. Just because you have a Mac. Well, you know, think about whenever you see an email from somebody, whenever you get any type of directive, if you think it might be compromising your security, don't follow it. Don't do the kinds of things that reduce your security. Take a measure of caution, have some level of street smarts when it comes to using technology, and don't expect things to be fail-safe all the time.